realize that our knowledge is ignorance, this is a noble insight. To regard our ignorance as knowledge, this is mental sickness. Only when we are sick of our sickness shall we cease to be sick. The sage is not sick being sick of sickness. This is the secret of health.
People will come to me after listening to a radio program or watching a few of my TV programs, maybe a commentary that I do. They are attracted maybe a little bit to the idea of the philosophy. They hear everything in the form of philosophy. That's the only way they can hear my words. They put it together and see if it meshes with their ego, to see if it meshes with their emotions, if they can make anything out of it, if they can understand it and make a knowledge out of it. And when they do that, of course, they think they know. Lao-tzu in the Tao-te gang talks about our sickness, what our real sickness is. And it has to do with what we think we know. Just because a person can formulate some idea about what I am talking about or what Lao-tzu is talking about, what a Jesus is talking about, what a Buddha is talking about, doesn't mean that we know. Our deepest sickness is in what we think we know. What I assume about my life makes me believe that I know. The things I assume, like I know what love is, that's an assumption based on my emotional patterns, that I know my mental constraints and my mental strengths and my physical prowess. People live off of these things and they think that is what they know. People will come to me and say, I want to interview you, so to speak. So they'll come for a counseling session and interview me. They'll ask me questions about how I perceive a practice or what I'm teaching someone. And they may get a little bit of this off the radio program or something I've written and think, oh, I get it, I understand. But when the rigors of a spiritual practice really begin to have their way in a person's life, that's when you see people backing off. No one wants to go through the rigors. What is it that makes a person want to enter into an authentic spiritual practice and not just hide behind a book or just listen to discourses or listen to maybe these TV programs and watch them and hide behind them and think, well, I don't have to get too involved. If you don't get involved in your life in a practice, if you don't come to it, you will find that you will never know the meaning of yourself. You'll never know why everything is happening the way it's happening. And the why isn't as important as the being of it all. Everything is happening in our life according to one of two things. Either my awareness, which is based on my compassion, or due to my sickness. And Lao-tzu says in the Tao, unless we are sick of our sickness, we will continue to just be sick. We're not getting better because we want to believe we're getting better. Really being healthy, really being insightful, is to understand that I am sick, to understand the nature of my illness, that my knowledge has made me ill. My beliefs have made me ill. I don't have any authentic faith. All I have is my illness. And my illness is predicated on the idea of my survival, my comfort, my security. And as long as I live in this kind of way, this premise, I develop within me a sickness. It's a willfulness on my part. And when I start becoming willful and I start enacting that willfulness, being prideful even about it, because it might accomplish something in the world or get me something of notoriety or maybe make people feel like I'm impressed or impressing or impressive, that is when something starts to happen. There is a deep illness in humankind, a profound illness, and no one can take it away, not politics, not religion. People fall into religion because it's easy. You don't have to work upon yourself. You don't have to change. All you have to do is follow the mechanics of the religion. The priest, the minister, they give you what you need to believe in. And then you just say you believe in it or you try to believe in it. This is why people have to constantly go to church, because it's unbelievable what they're being taught. So you have to keep it going back and going back and going back to be a believer. But there is more to your life than all of this, and this is the sickness that most of us succumb to long before we die. We have been sick a great deal in our life, so sick that we have been obsessed and compulsed by many aspects of our emotions and our passions. So when Lao-tzu says that we are not sick of our sickness, he is talking about how we want to get well or not. Most people do not want to get well. They like to assume they understand everything, and they want to fit into the fabric of the culture and the society. They won't want to go any further than that. They don't want to disrupt the very thing that causes them to be ill. I know many people who are not in good marriages. I know many people who are not in good relationships with themselves or others. I know people who are very sick on the inside. The values they hold, the beliefs they have, the hate that they hold within themselves, all of these things constitute our psychology and our ability or our inability to know the truth that would set us free. There's so much to the three treasures of the Tao, and I'm sure you didn't get everything that I offered here. So I go into the studio and I make very, very important CDs for you. They have all of the discourses I've offered to you here on TV, but also much more in depth. And I think you'll find them very beautiful and very meaningful. If the Tao is to your heart's content, which it is, I think you'll want to order these right away. Go to my website at aspire.org and order yours today. Now back to Aspire. In my 40-some years of being a teacher, I have heard and seen it all. And it amazes me how people will come to me and sit down and talk to me about what they believe is a spiritual practice, which really isn't much of a stretch for them. It's just about certain principles that they think they believe in, but they never truly live. And I question them about it. I poke them a little bit about it. And the same reaction always happens. They either get insulted and leave, or they get very angry and then eventually leave. They don't have what it takes on the inside to persevere. What is it that makes a person persevere? Every person watching this video right now, this show, has something within them that has drawn them to this video, to this moment with me. But what are you doing with it? Are you analyzing it? Are you listening? Or are you analyzing? Let me read you something Lao-tzu wrote. To regard our ignorance as knowledge is the mental sickness of the universe. Yes, it is. It is the mental illness. To regard my knowledge and make it appear to be real when it is nothing but ignorance on my part is the sickest thing I do. So when you're looking or you're listening to a discourse, it is a very difficult thing to do. It took me a long time to learn how to listen to a discourse. When I first went to India, I sat for weeks and weeks and weeks trying to hear what was being said. And it was my knowledge that was getting in the way. I could not hear it. I heard words, I heard thoughts, I thought. But what I was really experiencing was my filter, my Gregory Penn filter that kept me from really hearing what was going on. When I went to that very secret place that I call of the Most High within, when one day I dropped everything and I gave up trying to understand, I realized my knowledge was a barrier, not a bridge. I realized that things were happening inside of me as a filter, that everything I had ever believed in, everything I had ever thought, every emotion I had ever had kept me from the moment of truly getting it, of hearing, purely hearing the message. Once you hear the message, you really hear it, you can't go back to your old self. You can't go back to your old ways. And the ego is manufactured in a way inside of us, so we never get to hear that message. We hear the inklings of something very beautiful, the tinkling of the bells. But when we look for the gong that would wake us up, we can't hear it. We're so busy accumulating more and more opinion and knowledge that we are incapable of hearing. We become deaf. We become deaf to the truth and to the light and to the love that lives within us. So we run astray, we run amok constantly. You don't really know how important your life is. You really don't. You don't even get the meaning of it. For you, it is probably just going through day to day, living day to day, trying to find something to amuse you, reward you for your efforts in a day. And then maybe at the end, you will find yourself in a hospital bed somewhere, and there'll be enough drugs to make you pass away, and you won't know what's going on. And that is the accumulation that most people live in. It's an accumulation of ignorance, and people call it knowledge. I know a lot of people who spend a great deal of money trying to get healthy. They will spend money on vitamins and food and organic things, and they spend a great deal of time doing that, trying to assimilate some kind of health. But the truth of the matter is, we're not healthy. Listen, only when we are sick of our sickness, Lao-tzu said, shall we cease to be sick. When you're so sick of your life, when you can't take one more breath the way you are and live one more moment as you is, that is when something will begin to change. It can't be with hate. It can't be with fear. It has to be realizing how sick I am, that my thoughts, my attitudes, my perceptions, my beliefs have made me a very sick and ill person. That is when something can happen. But I guarantee you, you will be going against the ego. I guarantee you will be going against the grain of the culture, the society. You will be going against the collective unconscious. And it will be very difficult to swim against that. But if you are willing to, and if you are willing to lay aside everything that has made you sick, you will find that authentic health, real health, has nothing to do just with the body. It has to do with where you sit on the inside of yourself, the state of your beingness, and learning how to live in being rather than in knowledge that makes me sick, that makes me ill. This is a practice. This is more than a philosophy. And you have to trust the teacher. You have to trust the heart. You have to trust the way. And that is something that most people can't do because they become so accustomed to the illness that lives inside of them that they actually believe that that illness is the way of their life. There comes a time in everybody's life where they feel like they really need a change in their living. I offer you 3 retreats every year at Mount Madonna that are very intense, simple, yet very effective. They include meditation, Gestalt therapy, some insight work. Come to the website at aspire.org and take a look at retreats. So what makes a student a student? They have to be sick of their sickness to such a degree that they can't live another minute the way they are. They can't go another second. They realize there's something beckoning them. The call is pulling them. But most people lose that very early on in their life. It's a fraction of the population of this world that understands why they are here, that the karmic wheel is turning, and that there is something in their karma that is calling them to work upon themselves, to go and find out what it really means to live one's life. The thing that is missing in most of us is something called faith, and I talked about it earlier in this series. This faith has nothing to do with religion or philosophy, and has nothing to do with anything that I could believe in. This faith is a quality of consciousness, and it lives within us as we learn to let go of our emotions and passions and stop basing our life and making life decisions on emotion and passion. This is very hard for young people to do. Most of them can't do it at all. When I was in India, we were sitting with around 3,000 or 4,000 people, and out of that, probably only a handful of us, maybe 50, maybe less than that, are still in the work, are still practicing. Why? Well, there are so many ways to perpetuate the inner illness that most of us suffer from, and we don't see it as illness. We see it as okay. It's my assumptions, it's my beliefs, it's my stupidity. Have you ever noticed yourself trying to manufacture some kind of evidence for a story you want to tell yourself, a belief that you might have, and how the ego manufactures all that evidence so quickly and easily, and there you are spewing it out, and before you know it, you even believe it. That's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. The faith that is the antidote to all of this comes in learning how to sit in stillness, how to be so quiet on the inside that you can actually feel the vibration of something going on within you that wants to take you to the meaning of your own existence, the meaning of your life. This takes practice, and you have to remove the obstacles that keep you from it. Now, doing that just simply means, and you're not going to like this, denying my emotions and allowing one insult after another on the inside of yourself to be rolling through you constantly. You're going to find your ego calling you names, your ego trying to take your life away again by making you believe that you are failing, you're not doing what is right, you're not doing what is good, and you're hurting other people as well as yourself. A spiritual practice is a very, very, very delicate thing. And it isn't to be considered as something that just anyone can do. It's something you do with your heart and with your soul, with your being. And once you have found that place inside you where faith resides, that is where you use your energies to bring forth love and kindness. To be in a practice, one has to be very, very compassionate. Compassionate to such a degree that compassion is the first order of a person's life, not second, not third, first. That I would do everything I could to make love possible within me, that I might be able to come to a place where not human understanding prevails, but spiritual insight. I like spiritual insight. It's an interesting thing. It happens when I least expect it. I'll be doing something, that I think is important. It won't be there. Then I do something that seems innocuous. It doesn't really matter. And all of a sudden, there it is. Again, Lao-tzu's teaching comes into bear. Its most important fruit. Get simple. The simpler you are, the more you're going to find these insights coming to you. This compassion will start to develop within you. Your humor will change. And when everything starts to be something that brings a smile to your face, when you're no longer in that serious mode where you're trying to understand everything through intellect and you're willing to give up your intellect, all of a sudden, a lightheartedness begins to happen. And you start seeing things the way they are, as they are, through what they are. And that is getting rid of my sickness. That is being healthy. Health has nothing to do with the geometry of your body. It has to do with the symmetry of your being. And if you can live in that symmetry with some compassion and forgiveness, it'll change everything that you have ever done in your life and really make karma something beautiful. Please forgive me. Namaste. There's so much to the three treasures of the Tao, and I'm sure you didn't get everything that I offered here. So I go into the studio and I make very, very important CDs for you. They have all of the discourses I've offered to you here on TV, but also much more in depth. And I think you'll find them very beautiful and very meaningful. If the Tao is to your heart's content, which it is, I think you'll want to order these right away. Go to my website at aspire.org and order yours today.